As today we come to reflect, to get our meditation from the Gospel of Mark, chapter 9, in the section where Christ is highlighting what is happening between the disciples. They were arguing about something. But before this arguing happened, I want to remind you about what we talked in the last 2 weeks. So last week, if you remember, was the question about the Messiah, who the Messiah is. And we explained about what people understood, the definition of the Messiah versus Christ's understanding of what the Messiah should be. The worldly understanding of what God should act, how God should act, versus really God has his own plan. God has no arm to twist, but we try sometimes. So in all the ways, it's God's way versus human's way. It's the world's policy and ethics and system versus God's way. God's way, its own. God's way can sometimes change chaos into order and order into chaos. But for us, if nothing fit in the order, we collapse. If nothing fit what we are really planned for, we do not know what to do. God's way is beyond our understanding. And God's way is the way of believing. There is a way out of no way. So as we see that, the last week we talked about the Messiah and the big proclamation from Peter saying that you are the Messiah, and then the harsh conversation between Christ and him. But I want to refresh your memory about the week before when we talked about the woman, the Phoenician woman who wants her daughter to be healed. And the other story was about the healing of a man who was muted, the man who could not speak and could not talk. The God that when God opened his eyes and he said, Iftaha in Aramaic, which means open your eyes and open all the ways so you can listen to God's way, was the point that Mark is trying to teach us, that in many places in his gospel, that God is doing something to help them to understand. And while he's doing more like healing and miracles and many big things, he wants the disciples to open their eyes. And the mission failed. And many times, Christ is working so hard by talking, by explanation, by doing some illustration, have a conversation, or even performing miracles for the sake of to let the disciples really understand. And Mark's saying, these people you think they are close to him, they actually did not understand his message. The people who are in the small circle that's working, eating, sleeping, walking together, they share many things, they actually did not get it yet. And how easy that we can jump into that. Like, how dare you lived with Christ, you ate, you did all of that, and you cannot understand. Because what Christ is offering is really very hard to understand. Christ is offering that he is suffering. He will suffer. He will die. He will be killed. This is all the terrible image that somebody want to draw about their hero. My hero will defeat the bad guys. My hero will do all the things that when I pray for him, he will just snap his finger and he do everything I want. That's my hero. But Christ is presenting God who is suffering. God is the one that walks and talks with you. Let us all admit, none of us like this image, except it is God's way. None of us like to address these issues about, oh, you're talking about suffering. Let's change the topic now. Let's talk about something that's more important. We think Christ is so kind of like he like to make us maybe self-pity or something like that. Let's talk about something that's more important. Who's bigger? Who's better? Let's in some way they are dismissing the painful, serious talk to go into more a childish talk about. Let's talk about which one will have the best seat, which one will be closer to him. And while we can easily judge these disciples and call them whatever bad words we like to call them, but we are not really different from them. When we meet hot topics and hot issues in our life, what we like to do? We dismiss them. We put them under the carpet, right? we try really to pretend they are not there. Because they're either irritating us, they're really, or sometimes they're making us exposed like a scandalous way. We do not like to look this way. In one of my visits in my other job, I get a lot of this conversation. Especially, unfortunately, I meet people at the end of life where I hope that sometimes, I hope they did not see me like the angel of death or something like that, you know? But I cannot prevent it. It's part of the ministry. And this man was really conscious. He was toward the last of his days, and he really raised many big questions. And was big one like, I don't believe in God. Why are you here? I did not need a pastor. I'm not religious. I hate all this. And I understand all this anger thing. But at the same time, out of this anger, he was able to address a very serious issue about like, how can you worship a God that allow all these children to be killed, the children that's starving in Africa and all of these things, and all of this. So I felt like part of me is trying to say, you know, he's a guy, he's dying, he's having a hard day. Let's just let him say whatever he's saying. But out of that, he's saying also a big question that all of us are afraid to ask. But suffering, how can you justify suffering? The way we can justify people who are suffering, you did something wrong, so that's the normal result, you get your punishment, right? But when we really get deeper, that's a good way, like, okay, I messed up something, I get my punishment. That's a very easy, it make your conscience free. Yep, I got what I deserve. But if you dig in your own stories, or many people around your stories, a lot of things happen without no really justification of, do I deserve what happened to me or to my loved ones? So the suffering question is a big philosophical, theological, and anybody who think will give you a quick, easy answer for that, just to know them, they really do not understand what suffering is, what injustice is. When I could be walking on my home and thinking that, and I go to the gym and I have a very healthy diet and I do everything that could be perfect, and maybe a drunk driver just driving around and hit me and make me lose everything that I'm working on. Is this fair? This is just, and there are a million more complicated stories in life more than that. That's just one simple scenario of that. How can you be either be angry at God and resenting at God and see that God who does not care and does not give you an explanation, versus this God that say that I am the one that's suffering. This problem was a problem even beyond the disciples. When we read the church history, we say that there is no way that our God suffered, that our God could be in a corner like these bad guys who did bad things and they got bad outcomes. We have like at least 200s of early Christianity after Christ could not accept that. We have a group that's called Docetism and Gnosticism, without going into big definition of what this means. But this is heretics. They want to save God from being suffering. So they said what actually crucified on the cross was not real Christ. It was like, looks like Christ. It's more like a ghost crucified, but not our real God. That shows you how it was very hard not even to blame the Jews and the early disciples, that even last almost 200 years after Christ, these early Christians could not accept to combine that our God actually can be with us in suffering. Our God can be with us when we have no answer. Our God can be with us when we look really in a bad way, you know, and we are just out of the scene and nobody's interested. God is saying, I come to be with you. And this is the story before we jump into how silly they are. They're talking about who is have the highest rank, which one is kind of like is going to be the top military guy in Christ's army, who's going to be on his left and right arm. Yes, easy. We can jump into that and say these immature disciples and these like selfish disciples. They're not. They're like you and me. There was many things that's in the back of their head. A big Christ just dropped a bomb there talking about his death and his suffering, and they could not take it anymore. We listen too much to suffering. We try to save you from these bad ideas, and you keep reminding us that you will suffer. We suffer. We do not need a Redeemer that will suffer. We need somebody to take us out of our suffering. But Christ is saying that in my privilege, that I know what's going to happen in your life. You know what's more suffering for Christ more than the physical pain? That he's talking to a friends that soon they will turn to be enemies. I cannot imagine how many of us will act and behave the same way if you know that the people that you love and care and you work very close by, if we are capable to read the future for the good and the bad. I didn't think that many of us will continue to behave this way. If we know that the people we are serving, the people that we love, that's family or friends or church or whatever that is, that one day they will be really a bad influence on us, will be a bad mouth or be anything. This is the good thing, that Christ, the only one, he knows what's going to happen with Peter. The one who's saying, you are the Messiah. In a few days, he will say, I do not know. I have no idea who this guy is. The guy that's sitting and eating around the table on the Last Supper and sharing a plate with Christ is the same guy that's going to sold him. And there are many, many stories. Just imagine as a human how our behavior and our thinking, our even feeling toward other people, if we know what may happen in the future. Unfortunately, Christ knows, and he's stuck with them. He knows everybody. He knows what's going to happen. He did not use it to say like, bad you're going to be bad. He knows like, I'm going to be there when you need me, when you are down. So as we see the disciples coming into this argument about who's the greatest? Why do you care? Because we want really to have a better place. We want to feel the redemption of our suffering. We want to say like, okay, you suffer because there is a reward, you know? But Christ is saying that even if you do not get your reward on earth, you get it in heaven. You get your reward because your eyes is not on each other. Your eyes is on the Lord. There is a difference between those who will walk on everybody's, a child and old and young, woman and man, somebody in either. They do not care because they want to reach something. They will even walk on any dead body just to get what they want. Where somebody else is sitting in the back and just trying to say, it's like everybody wants to push the other person to be first. This is the kind of like two groups of people, that Christ people versus human way. The human way, do everything and justify everything to get where you want to go, to reach your goal. There is a price and it's okay. And we make even our conscience numb sometimes. When we do something we know it's bad, we find a way to, no, it's not that bad. We have to do that, you know? So it's a way of human walking on each other to the point where they take each other life and value and love just for me to get there on the top, whatever the top that is. Money, power, authority, you name it. I do not care. I only see myself, I only see the distance that I want to go to. But Christ's crowd is the people that's like good Presbyterian that's went to like to sit at the back of the seat there, you know, right? So we don't like to. But the idea is like everybody's pushing each other to be first. In this kind of dynamic, there is no last and there is no first. They're playing the music, the chair music, you know, just for the sake of like, just you first. You do it first. Because my focus is I get my satisfaction that my eyes is fixed on the God that gave me life. I was not supposed to be in a church. I do not deserve to be in this place, and I'm here. So I'm so pleased and so satisfied even to be in the back there doing something when nobody even maybe recognized me. And by the way, it's not right and it's not easy for all of those who do good works for the Lord and for us not to be recognized. And the worse, when you are recognized not in a way that makes you feel good, right? That's how we feel as human. So this is the way that God is saying that if people at sometimes recognized you, take it as God's gift, as God's way of tapping on your shoulders. But do not get used to that. Do not think this is going to happen every day, every time. Just focus on just what you are doing and enjoying it. Enjoying being sitting in the last row at the church or in the middle, or somehow you are pushed by no choice to be in the front because there is no other. Somebody needs to be here. Somebody has to preach. So somehow people push you to be here and be in the site where our people see you. But there are many people in a church work that will not be seen like the preacher, but they're doing a wonderful job. So, and that doesn't make us feel good when we feel like we are not recognized, or even when the time comes to be recognized, we are recognized not in uplifting ways. So how do I protect myself and from my fellow Christian in the church, you know? Just knowing that my eyes is on the Lord. My eyes that in the Lord when even if my whole life, maybe I did not get what I deserve of recognition and understanding, but I get the satisfaction that I was not supposed to be, I do not deserve to be here from the beginning. So I'm not debating, should I be here or in the middle and there, just to have an access to be in God's presence that's supposed to be sufficient and enough for me. So this is the kind of like these disciples are coming and fighting and talking about who is the greatest. And before that, the great thing is Christ is saying, what are you guys arguing about? How many times we really have many hard questions and we cannot say it to anybody? We do not know if Christ really heard what they were talking about and he pretended, so he wants to not to really embarrass them. He wants to say, share with me what you have. Or he saw their face, like, you know, when people really something touched their nerve and their heart, you can see that the impact on their face, they are not okay. So Christ knows that there was a serious conversation. He wants them to bring the question to him. And this is maybe something we need to learn about. If we want to be in the category to be a true follower of Jesus Christ, do really bring our deepest question that we are afraid to ask, like a big question about suffering. Why do I suffer? Why this happened to me? Why life is not fair to me? And none of us like to, when we talk, like to pretend like a little child crying about their feeling gets hurt. We all like to be strong, independent man and woman who can care and hide our feeling and be professional on whatever we do. This is true for in the world category, you know. But Christ saying, I have a different way. Christ say, I value your feelings. I value your mind. I value when you look professional or not professional. When you please people or do not please people. So God is saying that my kingdom rules is different. My kingdom rules is having a place for all of you. Do you trust me to bring the deepest question that you will not even in your nightmare imagine to say it to anybody else? And Christ is giving them an invitation to say, there is no bad question. There is no forbidden questions. Questions are blessing. Question could be really a bridge that make us understand what's happening on both sides. Question could really understand that and instead of struggling by yourself in your dreams, in your nightmares, in your thinking, to somebody else, maybe share the struggle with you. We do not promise that when we listen to each other, concern or question, that we have an answer. But we promise that if a heavy load that's divided by two people, it will be lighter. If a heavy load that's divided by more people that trying to share the heavy load, it will be lighter and lighter and lighter. This is the kind of kingdom that God say, you people, you have your own rules as the worldly kingdom, and I have mine. And I started by not preaching to you, easy to preach, but hard to walk in what you're talking about. So Christ saying, I did not tell you, go suffer. I am suffering. I'm the one that's going to suffer. I did not tell you, go and try and see the sense of betrayal and denial. This is going to happen to me. So I do not preach from my ivory tower. I walk. My hand is in the mud, and I know how it feels. So the founder of our kingdom is not fake. He's not just a fake character in the social media that's teaching us wonderful thing. He's a real person in real flesh. And when he suffered like a human being like you. He say, ouch, when it hurts, because he feel the pain. He felt the pain emotionally when he asked the God the Father, can you please just take this and give it to somebody else? I didn't think even I can continue and finish your mission. This is our God who did all these great miracles, but the greatest miracles, he is Emmanuel. He's the one that with us, walking with us, understanding us in our silence. And he's bring the image that Christ is bringing to his disciples, the image of that child. And he takes and just say, okay, you want to be great? Let's teach you how to be great. And we know Christ used the image of a child in a different way. But here the focus is on to accept this little child. And the story that he's sitting there in the house and he's looking for an illustration, as Jan is trying sometimes to look for some materials to show to the kids during the time, the children time. As we see that Christ is bringing actually a child. It's not his own child. And we assume maybe the father was there. But Christ is giving a warm hug to a child that's not his own first. And the second is showing that who do you think the worst in your category? So if he's a Jew or Gentile, that's first. Okay, and then if you are a Jew, a man or a woman. And then the last one on the whole list is a child. That's how the society of Jesus Christ receives. Not like today, the way we do see how much we do even before babies comes in the world today, We prepare, we do things, it's a big thing. The whole life centered in our modern day about child and how we raise a child and how we give them a good life. But unfortunately, this was not the way 2,000 years. A child is a burden. A child is useless until they get older and they start to work on the farm and help their family to make more money. So even a woman, that's not the worst, because a woman, if she is an adult, if she is old enough, they find any man to marry her, so the man will take her and afford her, so we don't need to worry about how to feed this woman. This is the mentality. But a child that you have to feed them hoping that they get older and they can work and help you in your work. So this is an image about a child. So for a Jew sitting with Christ, understanding that what is this child is doing here? And Christ, this child has a place. This child needs to be received and respected and understood and loved. The child, what a child needs, the child do not debate with you. When they're so mad, they cry so hard like the end of the world. And when you give them something simple and easy, they feel like they own the whole world. This is how the children do not say two meanings message to you, If they love you, they cannot lie, they smile. If they do not like you for whatever, you see it all over their face. They are not happy, they are not comfortable. So this is the character that Christ is saying, that you need to have this simple, easy heart that can really receive God's way. As the whole world review them and see them as the last and the least, Christ saying they are the most important one. You are servant for all of these people. And you accept them because that's the way it happens. Who did accept you first? Me. So when you do something good to others, always remind yourself, I am a product of this grace. We always forget like that, you know? Like think about that one day you were so dirty and you need somebody to take you and wash you and put some good clothes and clean stuff on you. But as life turned around, we learned how to put nice clothes, we learned how to take good showers on ourselves, and we have all the resources. And we forgot how to do that with other people. We need to keep our memory of grace, how we became where we are today because of simply of God's grace. The one who washed us, the one who took care of us, the one who gave us a place that we call a church. So normally in one day, God gave you the chance to wash somebody else and to take care of somebody and provide an essential needs for somebody else. God is saying that you are my true followers because you keep the cycle of grace open and keep covering more people and more people. I pray that we do not fight to be greatest and who is first, but we fight to just be fully enjoying God's presence in our life. Regardless, I'm in the middle or in the back or even invisible in many ways. But really, I get my satisfaction from being in true relationship with God, who look after me and who rewards me, not in the way I wish or I like, but God always reminds you that he rewards you in different ways. Do you listen? Do you see? Do you pay attention to God's rewards in your life? Amen.